Freelancers, small business owners, consultants, and solopreneurs. Some people are just drawn to working for themselves. I'm Owen Roth. In this show, I have conversations with self-employed folks about their career journeys. Welcome to the Bossless Path podcast. And here we go. Today I'm joined by Bryon Daniels, owner of Greenhouse Coffee and Plants here in Corvallis, Oregon. Bryon, thanks for being here.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah. So I'm owner and operator of Greenhouse Coffee and Plants here in Corvallis. Basically, my day-to-day is just slinging some coffee, selling some plants, and doing a little bit of small talk here and there with the regulars.
For those who haven't been in your shop, could you describe that? 'Cause it's pretty, unique.
Yeah, definitely. So it's coffee shop, plant shop. So we have a full service coffee bar, but then we also sell a pretty wide selection of house plants. And so walking into the shop, we have all north facing windows and large window panes. And so ton of natural light and stuff in there. And then it's pretty much a lush jungle of greenery and plants after that. And, our little coffee counter and a few chairs and seats and stuff like that, but just a lot of space for plants. And retail, we do a lot of different merchandise from local artists and stuff like that here in town, as well as small businesses elsewhere across the U.S. And a pretty sweet bathroom.
Yeah, I actually haven't used the bathroom, but I've seen pictures of it on your on your Instagram, and I've heard about it too. Yeah, it's actually funny. One of the things one of my friend groups here in town do is we send pictures of just bathrooms that we're in town, and just shoot it to the text thread, and just where's this bathroom? And your bathroom has not come up yet, but I should throw it in there because I'm wondering if any of them know it.
Yeah. I think the trademark of a really good business, specifically in service industry, is a good bathroom.
Oh yeah,
you can tell how much effort they put into their space and the design of everything if they don't stop at the bathroom.
Okay, I'm gonna pay more attention to that.
Sometimes nice restaurants have bad bathrooms, and it's they didn't go 100% of the way.
Yeah. Okay. So that was the first thing you started with, and
it actually was.
Oh, no way.
Ironically, yeah, because the interior of the space. When we got it, it was not a good building. The building is great, but the space itself needed a ton of love, a ton of work.
Yeah.
It had a drop ceiling in there. They had closed off essentially 6 feet of ceiling above there. There was a whole second set of windows that were painted over on the upper area.
Yeah.
And so when we got in there, there was so much of just kind of opening the bare bones of it and just opening it, making it a pretty open, large space that the walls and texture and paint took 3 months of just that. So the only space that was able to be worked on was the bathroom for 3 months.
Oh, okay.
So it became this project of let's put black toilets in there, and we'll paint the walls green, put up some wallpaper and fake greenery. There's a fake living wall and stuff in there, and just became this thing of now it has its own soundtrack, and now there's an action figure in there, all this stuff just
got
kept
its own
expanding.
Soundtrack.
Yeah.
Wow.
Plays Tarzan Boy by Baltimore on repeat.
Even furthermore, reason to check it out.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice. Okay. Let's work backwards. I would like to get to hearing more about how you built up the shop.
Absolutely.
But let's start at the beginning. What's your kind of career been?
Yeah. So essentially, as soon as I graduated high school, I was self-employed. I did a ton of video during high school. That was my focus. Was the one thing that kept me actually going to school was video work, and I was on the announcements. I started as a nervous sophomore in high school, auditioning to be on the school news, as I just wanted to be involved in the video production program somehow, but couldn't get into the classes. So I figured being in front of the camera is a good entry to figuring out some stuff behind the camera.
Sure.
And I was not good at it, but I got there, and then slowly, eventually, one of our main producers was "Do you want me to teach you how to do some of the stuff?" And I was like, "Yes, please."
That's why I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah. And so by the time I graduated, it was 6 of my 8 classes were all video production.
Wow.
I was off shooting stuff after school with my friends, and we were driving around in cars and doing dumb stuff with swords and all that kind of, regular high school video things. Exactly what you would expect.
Well, I have a lot of relatability because that's how I got into video too. Was high school. That's a lot of classes, as far as a ratio for video, to other courses. But we had a similar thing, a little film esque program, and yeah, there's like nights where we were up to like 3 a.m. shooting films on like a school night, and we thought it was like so crazy, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Definitely.
it sounds like you were heavy into it though.
Yeah. It was so I took basically every class that I could take, and then there was one for the school news, and then I had independent studies as well, where I would just kind of like come up with projects, propose different projects, or just kind of do general housekeeping for the video like classroom and stuff like that.
So when you got out of high school, what was that first self-employment thing?
I was kind of just picking up gigs, whatever I could do, and was on Craigslist and like seeing what was out there.
Sure.
And I did a mix of like, I tried a couple weddings. I shot some local professional wrestling, which was like probably my favorite thing that I've ever shot. And that's like near and dear to me because I grew up watching like pro wrestling and stuff. So I was like, this is cool. This is the coolest thing I could possibly be doing right now. And then a few like commercial projects and things like that, and just kind of dabbled in stuff. And I was going to community college for a little bit, took video classes there. And that's kind of what cemented it for me is I took Video 1 and just was like, we'll start with their entry class. We'll see what it's about. We'll probably learn a few new things or something like that. And I didn't. It was just a repeat of everything that I knew. And the main teaching method was like, has anyone in here used a camera?
Yeah.
And so every class was just me like, yep, what do you want me to tell you about it? Like, and I just essentially teaching a Video 1 community college class. And by the final, she's like, you came in here knowing everything we were teaching. I can't give you anything less than an A+. And I was like, that's great. I'm glad I was here for it. So then I took Video 2 thinking this will be better. Like, we'll take the advanced class. We'll learn some more things. And it was me and one other guy in the Video 1 class. Like, so basically retaking Video 1, but they just gave us one extra assignment. And so after that, I was like, I think I'm okay. I think I'm good. I don't really want to do school anymore. And I was fortunate enough that my grandparents were like, well, what do you want to do? Like, what, if you could do anything, what would that be? And so I was just kind of like, I think I want to start my own business. I think I want to like just film stuff, make some like music videos and like see what I can do to like earn an income. And my grandma was like, okay, we can do that. And so she bought me my like first equipment, my first cameras.
Nice.
And I immediately was like, okay, we'll do weddings. This is how much I'll charge. Like, came up with a business name, made brochures, all this stuff. Went to
what was the business name?
It's Starlight Films.
Starlight Films.
Yeah. The first ones are never good.
Mine was Live Motion Media.
Nice. That's better.
It's a little bit better, but it's still like it's very of its era.
Yeah. I like hung on to that for like a few years, and then eventually turned it into an acronym of SLF, and was like, that feels better, and we'll just hope no one ever asks.
Yeah, that's very like engineering firm. All the engineering firms that I've got a lot of friends who are engineers. Are just acronyms. Yeah, and like you never see like what the actual name is.
Yeah, it was. Eventually, I just got older and I was like, oh, this is not good, but I'm in too deep. But started doing weddings and like really like marketed myself for that industry, and then expanded into photography after that. And one of the weddings I shot was a friend of my high school video production teacher. And he graduated OSU, moved up to Portland, worked for Nike and stuff like that, and had started a marketing agency up there and was looking for someone to do video. And I had filmed his wedding. So he's like, this guy, maybe he can do some commercial work. And so brought me in, and I started doing a few things for him. And then after that, just kind of really expanded like the commercial portfolio and just was going all in on commercials and then doing weddings kind of 50-50 with those.
Nice.
And yeah, like really just expanded like everything I was doing and where I was going. And then, but was living in Salem. So I was driving up to Portland a bunch to shoot commercial stuff, and then driving back down to Salem to live and not do a ton of work within town.
Yeah.
So then after a while, I was like, okay, well, how can I recreate what I'm doing in Portland, but in Salem for a smaller market, smaller businesses, but ones that I'm specifically kind of more involved and invested in. Like I'm going to these places every day, these restaurants, these coffee shops. What can I do to improve kind of the way that they're presenting themselves? And so started doing kind of photo and video for them and stuff, and then quickly realizing that most of them didn't know what to do with photo and video once you did it for them. Like they would be like, this is an amazing video. And then they would like share it once, and then it was done. Large investment, not a lot of payoff. And so I was like, okay, maybe a little more broad spectrum of marketing is what's needed. And so partnered with a few other people, and then there's kind of a few different iterations of this, but eventually we got to a point where we're doing full service marketing of full brand design, large scale campaigns, photo, video, graphic design, websites, marketing awareness, and things like that.
Yeah, the full package.
Yeah.
A lot of bells are ringing here. My own path, I'm just like, oh yeah, I've done here's a video, and they're like, okay, now what do I do with it?
Yeah, they post a low quality version to their Instagram, and then you're like, oh, that doesn't look great.
Yeah. So you were doing that, and it sounds like that was a passion from your early adulthood that you're doing. How long did you do that?
About a little over like 10 years until I officially, unofficially retired. Yeah.
From that career?
Yeah. I got to a point where, because kind of towards the end of doing marketing things within an agency, I was specifically doing social media management. And so I was managing all the social medias for a lot of the businesses and things I was working with within town. And so, we'd produce their content, do their video, their photo, and then create these kind of more like different large scale like marketing campaigns of like how that's going to be presented and what their voice is and things like that. And then got really burnt out on that. running like 15 Instagram accounts isn't my passion.
Yeah.
But I do love like the marketing aspect of it, of doing things and seeing the results and like watching audiences build and seeing that support kind of come in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just got to a point where I was just like not happy with it. Wasn't doing a ton of photography, wasn't doing a ton of video anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And had been working with like partners for so long to where I was always more creative direction, grand, like kind of story and vision and things like that, and less hands-on camera and less like editing and stuff at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So when you were away from that for a while and you try to come back to it and do things, you're like, oh, it's way different now. We're not using the same software, and I've forgotten most of what I used to do, or like everything has evolved so much beyond that I'm just like, I'm years behind. And so I was just not enjoying it, didn't have the love for it that I did. And I just kept saying yes to people to take projects. And so eventually I sold all of my digital equipment, my cameras, my drone, and all of that stuff just to like fully be away from it. And now I shoot a little bit of like photo, like film now, and that's about it.
You have the coffee shop in mind at that point, or something else?
Yeah. So I had, I don't think we had necessarily opened yet, but I was specifically only doing like social media for a few clients and stuff that I still had.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't really doing photography as much anymore. And like the stuff that I was doing, like my iPhone was fine.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like I didn't need to do a full shoot and then go through all the photos and edit and stuff. I can do some pretty quick, easy things on my phone for the needs that I had.
Yeah.
So the shop was pretty much like under construction, like it was happening. And I just knew that I wasn't using the photo video stuff that I had anymore. It was just sitting around. And anytime I did accept something where there was like a wedding of a friend or someone that wanted headshots or something, I would just kick myself every time I said yes. I was like, yeah, I could use the money. And then I'd go do it. And I was like, oh, I really don't want to be doing this anymore.
Okay. But was it out of that necessity that you're in that position?
A little bit. I was like, I could have held on to this stuff and, done more work and got the money, but it was a situation where I was just kind of like, this is sitting around, and I think it had been over a year since I like flew my drone.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is just literally losing value of me hanging on to it, and I have no need for it anymore.
Sure.
And then I thought about it more, and it's like, if I also get rid of the stuff, like I can't say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Self-limiting in that way.
Yeah.
That's something I don't know if I could ever do. I'm too much of a hoarder and keeping my options open. So
yeah. I'm usually the same way too.
Oh, really? Okay. That's probably why you did that then. It was just like, I need to like sever.
Oh, it was tough.
Yeah. Okay. But it worked.
Yeah.
So for the coffee shop, was that an idea that you had a while ago, or like when you were at this point of like, I'm not happy doing the marketing, the transition develop?
Yeah. Kind of randomly.
Yeah.
I guess there's a side business in between this that kind of made the bridge here. But
okay.
When I was working with the marketing agency and stuff, one of my partners there, he came up with an idea where the building we had our office in, there was a couple spaces for lease at the end of the hall, and we kept sneaking in there, use it as a photo studio. As no one had taken it. It was just a big empty space, white walls, white floors, and it worked great. And had a bunch of like tall windows and natural light and stuff like that. So we kept using it as a photo studio, and then eventually he approached me and he goes, "Hey, what would you think if we leased this and we rented it out as a photo studio, like a rentable photo studio?" I was like, "That sounds great. I love signing leases. I love starting businesses. Like, I will happily do that."
Like approaching you to manage it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and he just as a partner. So we were both kind of going in on that. And there was another space across the hall. And I was like, okay, well, why don't we also do a co-working space? Like we can kind of market towards photographers and like, you know, they have their office there. They have a photo studio across the hall that they get to use. And so we eventually launched into that and started a business called The Gray Lab. And then my goal with that after like a year or two was like, okay, I see how this works. Like it's pretty easy, a little hands off. Doesn't require like my full attention. I can do other stuff and kind of, you know, manage some emails throughout the week and stuff like that.
Sure.
And I immediately was like, okay, more locations. Like I want this like up and down I-5. And so went and checked like Eugene, checked Portland, checked Corvallis, and there's a space on Monroe, which I have, and it's currently a studio, is the Gray Lab, and I had that for like a year, and it's the same building, same landlord as where Greenhouse is now. And so one day the landlord was around, and I go, "Hey, I just want to like see the space that you have over there for lease. I don't want to do anything with it. I'm just curious. I want to see what it looks like. Maybe send it to a friend." And he toured me through the space that is now Greenhouse. And I took a video of it and I sent it off to a friend. And I said, "Hey, this is a space that maybe has some potential and like the price is good. You should open a plant shop here." And that friend essentially shot back a text and was like, "I mean, that sounds cool. Like, I'll do it if you do it." And so I was like, "Yeah, why not?" And so everything just kind of fell into place with it. And somewhere along the planning process, I was just kind of like logistically thinking of the day-to-day plant shop life. And I was like, there's no way that we're going to be bored. Like there's, you know, like the plant customer side is great and it can like sustain the business and like bring in profit and stuff. But there's going to be like a handful of people an hour.
Yeah.
We're just going to be bored. So it's like, why don't we also be a coffee shop? Like that goes hand in hand. And like my weekend routine was always grabbing coffee, going to the plant shop. So like, what if it's just in one place?
Sure.
And also the coffee market for Corvallis too is like, there's really, really good coffee shops, but there's only a handful of coffee shops, which is wild to me coming from everywhere else I've been, where every half block you have a locally owned, operated coffee shop, and it's busy and doing really well.
Right.
And then I came into downtown Corvallis, and I was like, okay, there's like one here, and that's it. And they're all great.
Yeah.
Kind of geared it that way, and then it just became a thing where I was like, originally thought this will be a side thing. I'll keep doing the social media management, stuff like that, a little bit of marketing. And it'll just be a passive thing. I'll hang out there for a couple months and then hire someone to manage it.
Well, did the friend that you approached to do it, were you guys partners?
Yes. Yep. And so she was in as a business partner. It was going to be a side thing for her as well.
Yeah.
And then I was in there working the shop for like the first couple months, like being a barista for the first time in my life.
I've been at the deep end.
Yeah. And like first time working retail and service industry.
Oh, wow.
I was like, okay, this is actually kind of fun. I really like this. It's just chatting with people all day and like making sure they're having a good time and they're well taken care of. And I found that I just really liked it. It was the most like fulfilling, but also easiest thing I've ever done.
Nice.
After a couple months, I was like, okay, actually, I kind of want to do this. Like, I think this is way better than what I've been doing.
Yeah.
So I ended up kind of shifting into stop taking on social media clients and kind of phased everything out naturally, and just kind of when contracts expired and stuff, or clients decided that they were like done with the services, then I was just like, cool, I don't have any more clients there. I won't say yes to anybody else, and just do Greenhouse full time.
And what about the leasing of the space? Because you still have the Gray Lab here in Corvallis, and you have it in Salem.
Sort of. The Salem was a 5-year lease, which I don't recommend signing a 5-year lease. You learn, you live, you learn.
Sure.
So that just expired. The studio there, lease lapsed and just decided not to renew. And I've looked around for places to move it to. And there was one spot that I really wanted, and it just kind of couldn't happen. The building owner went with something else. And so just kind of walked away from it, and I can kind of reapproach it at some time if it makes sense. But for the time being, it just isn't worth it right now.
Yeah. So currently, yeah, you got the coffee shop, and then right next door you got the Great Lab here in Corvallis. And then the co-working space, how did that one go?
Yeah, that was weird. Opened it during a year or two prior to COVID. So kind of hit the whole gambit of everything that happened. Opened it, had some members, and it was like growing, doing really well.
Yeah.
COVID happened, and we had to like close most of the business, but it's such a like small thing to where people were actually better off going there and being around less people than most people were in like their home or anything like that. So we had a couple members that like still use the space, and then just the retention wasn't good like through COVID and post COVID. And then some people came back. We saw like a little spike, but then it just kept growing and dipping and growing and dipping, and just never really got back to where it was. And I decided that it reminded me too much of the service-based model of doing like photo and video work, of like trying to hustle and find people to fill a need to bring in the money.
Yeah. Super turbulent.
Yeah. It gets exhausting.
Yeah, sure.
And so that one is also been expiring with the end of the 5-year lease, and it's just one I'm not interested in dipping my toe into again.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're quite intentional about like what you spend your time and energy on. I mean, thus your career shift. So it makes sense that you would want to take off one or two of the hats that you put on over the years.
And I'm definitely one that likes to wear multiple hats, and so I'm always thinking of bigger and better hats to wear, looking at which one is the one that I can get rid of and being like, okay, I can swap that one out and have a little more time for this other one.
Cool. Are there any hats that you're thinking of in the future, or that you could share?
Definitely, yeah. I've got a few things that I want to move on in the next couple years or so here, but one is the potential and possibility of expanding the current greenhouse location, expanding it next door into where the studio space currently is.
Oh, okay.
It'd be kind of like going through the wall, and it would just open it up for more seating and make it a bigger, larger space. And ideally, like my dream is to have like a stage or something in there and do some like shows and stuff on the weekends. Awesome. And make a fun kind of like hangout space. Like I grew up watching the CW and shows like Buffy and Smallville, and they all have that local coffee shop that's open ridiculously late to like 11 or 12, which is completely unreasonable. But everyone in the entire town goes there for like some local small band. So
you're just trying to recreate what you said.
Yeah. I just want to be that spot, the Talon or the whatever the other ones are.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. That sounds. I mean, it sounds totally doable based off of what you've done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there? You said there's some other ideas as well.
The other one that I've been chatting with some friends about, and I'd love to see happen, is doing a barcade in Corvallis.
I don't know what a barcade is.
So it's essentially an arcade of like, like pinball, video games, and things like that. But
I do know what it is, but
also,
I don't know it by name.
Yeah. Yeah, and a bar.
Yeah.
So 21 and over, drinks, food, and a bunch of good nostalgia.
I haven't been to it, but there's a supposedly good one in Eugene.
Yeah, there's a few. Eugene's got a few good ones. Salem has one. And of course, Portland's got a good handful.
Yeah, I'm sure Portland's got bunches of them. Yeah. We definitely don't have that in Corvallis currently.
Yeah.
It's like a good niche.
It's the downside of being a business owner is I spend a lot of time going out and going to other businesses, and then chatting with my friends of like, this is fun and I like the places we go, but what are we missing? Like what could we be doing right now that we want to be go and be doing? And so currently we spend a lot of time drinking and there isn't enough activity. We need something to do other than bar to the next bar to the next bar.
Yeah. I know that's one complaint I don't really have myself personally, but a lot of my friends do about Corvallis in general.
Yeah.
It's just like, I think it's usually the people who come from larger cities. And Salem is where you grew up?
Yeah.
Okay. So a little bit larger.
Barely.
Oh, barely. Okay.
Yeah.
I actually haven't spent much time in Salem.
Yeah. It's got a cool downtown.
I could definitely see the pondering for how you could like create new spaces and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's my favorite part of the process too, because that's what I learned from doing marketing and the agency and everything, is that
Right.
I love that process of going through of like, okay, what's the name, what's the colors, like what's like the story and the voice behind this, and doing that whole kind of storytelling aspect.
Yeah, the creative vision.
Yeah.
Have you found that you like having the partner, like as far as, because the greenhouse is the first time you had a business partner? Or no, with
all of them have pretty much been partners at some point.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And no, I don't recommend it.
Oh, okay.
And so with greenhouse specifically, we made it about, I don't know, 6-8 months in, and then I bought the partner out. And so now I have it with just like a couple silent partners that kind of weigh in on some things and also do a lot of like behind the scenes work. But no, it's always complicated. It's so much easier to start a business when you have partners and like multiple hands in it.
Yeah.
But it's difficult when it's both people's passion project. Like when both people are like fully invested in it or have a lot of input and want a lot of say in the decision making. It's tough.
Yeah. I can share a little bit of direct relatability to that. This is not the first time I mentioned on this podcast, but it's the first time to your ears. Yeah, I had like a little video production business too, like just very similar career trajectory as you. Like high school, loved video, wanted to do it, got out with some friends who I went to high school with, and they were kind of into it, but they were clearly had different true passions. But I'm like, well, let's start a little business here, and we can just make money for the time being, for you guys at least. But so it was 2 other friends, and we were equal partners, but like there was definitely a unproportional balance of like skill and drive. And the business only lasted like, I don't remember, like 3 odd years or so, but it was like, it was limited in its growth and what we did because of them, not to point fingers, because I use them as partners because like, as like almost a safety net of just like, because I had like lack of courage to like take it on myself at that age.
Yeah.
It ended up also being what inhibited it too, because they like didn't want to invest as much time and money. So it was kind of this weird thing that like let me open the doors to entrepreneurship and get a little taste of it. But then also those partners also held me back in a way. But of course, if I was a little bit more stronger willed, then I could have just been, all right, well, I'm going to take it myself. But I wasn't at that point.
Yeah. No, totally get that. I find that partnerships are weird because it's when both people when it's like someone's brainchild baby, you're very protective of it.
Yeah.
And I find that there's just a weird relationship. And it's a dynamic that works in friendships, relationships, housemates, whatever. But there's always stuff that needs to be done. And there's things that are being like left undone. There's usually one person that's doing more than somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think the issue usually comes when one person complains, but like maybe doesn't see the things that are going on silently behind the scenes, or doesn't realize how much is actually being put in or how much effort and investment is actually in things. And it's just creates a lot of unnecessary friction.
Sure.
I've always been the one that like I put in all the work and do extra and do all the things and know that there's an endless task of stuff to where I would never be done no matter how long I did things. Yep. But also I'm not one to like complain about doing the extra work. Like I want that. Like I want this to succeed. I'm going to put everything I have into it.
Yeah.
And I find that there's the one that voices it and the one that doesn't.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This is ringing so many bells.
Yeah.
There was this podcast years ago. What was it? Man, I've got a bad habit of bringing up things and then not remembering them and just like, all right, forget what I even started to say. But anyways, it was a podcast about like big startups, and there was like, they had essentially as a business coach, but it was more, in reality, it was more of like a therapist for like business partners and stuff. And it seems like that's something that like would be very beneficial to people who are like trying to do it. Because I feel like often is the case, like with you and me, it sounds like you go into business with people you already know and have relationships with, friends and stuff. And it didn't for me, hopefully it didn't for you, like destroy a friendship, though. I could see that happening.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Like the tension that's like all this stuff that's attached and
Yeah.
cross-pollination.
So many layers, and then there's money involved. It's always it's a thing.
And unlike, if you're going to work for someone and you're just like, whether you're salary or paid hourly, it's usually like typically tied to the clock and stuff. It's like, oh, well, I put in 50 hours last week.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do?
Yeah.
But like, it doesn't quite work like that exactly with entrepreneurship, because some of it's like creative energy that the time isn't an accurate reflection of like the energy put in.
Absolutely. There's a lot of different value behind the things that go into being self-employed and a business owner, because and as like having to do video marketing and things like that, there's such a specific price point for that where it's definitely not hourly.
Oh yeah.
And you go into being a business owner and it's you're doing your own marketing, you're doing all these things, and then you're doing stuff just because you own the business, and you should probably be the one that does that.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah. The dreaded stuff for me.
Yeah.
So after the partnership ended, what happened as far as?
Yeah. So essentially did the buyout and got ownership of the shop, and which was cool because as a business owner, you want to do all these things and have these ideas, and it's nice when there's a partnership and you can kind of like bounce ideas off of each other. But I had so many things that I like wanted to do, and they were just like almost like hurdles. Like I was just like, I want to do this. Can we do it? Can we do it? Let me do it. And then so once the partnership was ended and I had say to do whatever I wanted, I was like, cool, we're open 7 days a week. We're open later. We're open earlier. We're like all these things, like expanded the menu, did all this stuff, hired some more staff, and just made a lot of like really good positive steps for the general direction of the business to make it something bigger than it was. Like it felt very bare bones minimum when we started. And then I was just like, finally got control and like, I was like, okay, can finally like level up now, and just was immediately like a switch flipped, and was just like, oh yeah, there's like way more customers now. Like the general like revenue, like the gross profit at the end of every month is way bigger than it was before.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of doubts in the buyout process of like, this is not going to make any money. Like it's just not sustainable. Like it's not going well. And in my head, I'm like, it could be.
Yeah.
And it was cool that like within, a month, 2 months after the buyout and doing a couple like easy, quick things, it was like, great, it's working. That makes me feel like I made the right decision.
That's so cool to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's one area that I'm personally seeing a lot of growth in myself is like that, the fear. Which it sound like maybe I'm reading it wrong. It kind of sounds like there was a little bit of hesitation once you had both hands on the steering wheel.
Yeah, there's just a lot of kind of stalling and also not wanting to take on too much. It was kind of a simplified idea versus like a bigger, grander idea.
Yeah.
On whether it should stay as something that it already is and keep it easy, straightforward, or add on more responsibilities. And I was like, stack on the responsibilities. It's already easy.
Okay, so it's more of like a challenge you viewed it as. Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, it's awesome that you found success via like taking that challenge and pushing yourself.
Yeah.
You sound very entrepreneurial. Do you find that comes from somewhere? Do your parents do something like this, or?
Honestly, that's a great question. I've just kind of always had it since I was a kid.
Okay.
And it's something where I've tried to figure that out because my dad's just kind of like blue collar worker. My mom's a teacher. Mm-hmm. And like this pretty much how it goes for most of my family. And then me as a kid, I was like doing little pop-up lemonade stands on the sidewalk and car washes. And anytime we would get those things for like T-ball or whatever, we have to go sell the candy. I was like, cool, I'm gonna go sell so much candy. We're gonna make this money coming in. Like, like loved that whole experience of like, okay, I can do this thing. And then I directly see like some kind of money. And I always wanted to go buy toys and things and stupid stuff.
Yeah.
But was constantly trying to like come up with different ideas for businesses and stuff, like all through my younger years of like hanging out with friends and being like very similarly like, we should start a production company and we'll like make movies and make a bunch of money, or start a band and make a bunch of money, and like just different stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's definitely a through line there of just like general creativity. I mean, you said it earlier when you were talking about when you were running your marketing agency that you really like the vision part.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've touched on it so many times with like how you like starting new things and stuff. So
yeah.
I'm assuming it's more than just, chasing dollar bills and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, and like seeing creativity come to like a real thing is always enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can, again, relate a lot to that.
Yeah. Specifically with Greenhouse, I don't think I've ever had such a like direct return and like positive reinforcement in a thing that I've done where working in the shop, it's daily, literally daily that someone comes in and they go, wow, it's so cool in here. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful. I love it. They're like, I just compliment after compliment. I'm just always like, geez, all right, thank you.
I think I said a similar thing to you because it's such a cool space and it's so unique. You said it earlier. There are a lot of coffee shops in Corvallis and good ones at that, but like yours is just, it's quite different.
Yeah.
It's really different in a great way.
It's actually a little bit of reinventing the wheel.
Yeah. Was that a model that you had seen before, the pairing with coffee and plants?
Not like physically seen. There hadn't been one that I had been to, and it was just kind of an idea where it made sense. And so I assumed it was already a thing. I was like, sure, people have to do this, and it's not one that I've heard of.
Yeah.
But it's got to be somewhere. And so I did some like Googling and found at the time there was like one in Washington and a handful like across the US, but not really a ton. So it was like an original idea to me, but it was one where I was like, there's no way this is original. Like for sure someone has done this.
When I first saw it and a friend mentioned it was opening up, I'm just like, oh, that's cool. Why haven't I not seen that before? It seems like it would be an obvious idea.
Yeah. It's a fun process.
The idea of like, maybe not franchising it, but doing what you did with the Gray Lab and having them.
My goal is definitely more locations with that one too.
Yeah.
I've looked around other spots in Corvallis. I have my eye on a few things. I really want Eugene. I think that would be like my next step. It's close enough just down the I-5 corridor where it's not a whole lot of work, but also just for me, as far as like living, like I'm not opposed to moving and getting around, traveling a bit more. And I think that's a fun idea that I could also travel with, of like figure out a spot that's good for a business and then pop it up there, live for a few years and do that kind of thing. I've always been in the growth mindset of if it's easy and can be managed by someone else, or I can do things from afar or like pop in occasionally, I might as well do more than one.
Why not? You already know what that's like. So.
Yeah.
From what I know, and I don't know that well, but I guess from the outside, it looks like the workplace culture with all the employees and coworkers, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
That you guys seem very tight knit and like a family.
Yeah.
How did you build that culture?
That's a great question. Hiring's hard. Like it's difficult. But I think when you like have a cool business and a cool concept and like an environment like that, it's not difficult to attract good people, but you also attract a lot of people. And so my biggest struggle has been like getting so many people that want to work there, where I hear about hiring in Corvallis and places are looking for like good employees and stuff like that, or constantly hiring, and can't find anybody. I'm like, I get a resume a day. Like I hate having to tell so many people that we're not hiring, but I get reached out to constantly.
I'm sure.
And for me, when I like did interviews and set up stuff, I think I just went pretty like untraditional about it. With our shop model, it's pretty common that someone will be there by themselves for hours. So they have to run the shop. They have to be the one that's doing customer interactions, doing multiple tasks, and also just a like professional and confident enough presence to where like they're in charge. And so first thing I did was I put it up on Instagram and was like, send over a video, like record yourself, just introduce yourself, say why you want to work here, say what your experience is.
Interesting.
And more than anything, I wasn't looking for their experience or necessarily like why they want to work there, but like, can they talk to a camera and like make me engaged?
Yeah.
Do they have like good personality that customers will come in and be like, that person's cool. Like, I want to be their friend.
Yeah.
And so it was really a lot of like just trying to find people that I feel like could run the shop and like be like, oh yeah, of course they work here.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was like really just sitting down, like would bring a few people in for interviews and then figure out like, okay, can you make drinks? Do you know anything about plants?
Hmm.
Wasn't super necessary, but like it's great if you can. And then just can they hold a good conversation with me? Do they seem like a decent person?
Sure.
And just generally like, are you going to steal anything? So I hope not. like that kind of stuff. I feel like when a lot of times when people bring in resumes, it's such a formal transaction for them, just like
Yeah. Yeah.
hitting all the talking points or none of them at all. And it's just like this thing of like, here you go, please hire me. Or like just,
It's formulaic without any
yeah.
energy or real connection.
Yeah. So I just really, really try to find people that are real people. And like, I know everyone's a real person, but like ones that present that way without even trying. Yeah.
It's such a cool idea. Like just like the video.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that before, but that makes a lot of sense.
And I kind of had that idea because there was so many people coming in to drop off resumes and stuff like that, or ask if we were hiring.
Mm.
And that's like one of my biggest pet peeves is especially in a college town, there's a lot of students that just don't know some formalities for bringing in resumes and stuff like that, or things of like, they come in with friends or whatever, and they're all dropping off resumes, or the friend is just like a escort to like take them place to place.
Yeah. Fold it up into a paper airplane and throw it at your face.
Oh, literally folded in half, or it's a stack of 20 of them and they're just going everywhere. And like the biggest one is they'll come in, they'll be like, wow, this place is really cool. Are you hiring? And then like clearly they've never been in before. It's just like this thing where it's like, just like come in, hang out for a bit, order a drink, like chat with whoever's working, and then ask. Like so much better than just the cookie cutter, like stop and repeat process of dropping it off. And everyone that I've hired has pretty much been someone that I'd seen in the shop before, I'd had interactions with, and they didn't lead with, are you hiring?
Yeah, like I said, I've never hired anyone. I've been part of like a hiring process, various jobs I've had, as far as like watching my boss and, them bounce opinions off me. But I've always found it fascinating the way that a lot of businesses hire people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, I'm just like, man, seems like there's red flags all over that. But
yeah. And getting so many resumes and stuff into, and seeing people bring them in, there's just like, I can tell immediately if I would like hire someone or not, just based on how they come in and present themselves and hand over a resume or something like that.
Right.
And so doing the video thing on Instagram was kind of just like a streamlined process of that, of like just based on how you can talk about yourself. Like I can tell whether or not that you would be a good fit.
Yeah. Well, it seems like your tactics worked because, like I said, from my perception is like everyone's just like, oh yeah, that person totally works at Greenhouse.
Yeah. I've got a really good crew. Like super proud of them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you obviously are very driven entrepreneurially. How do you like balance the work and the life? Or is there a balance?
No, definitely not. No balance.
No balance.
I feel like I burn it at both ends, and I'm trying to be better about that.
Okay.
In the last 2 years, I haven't had like scheduled days off really, except for like holidays. In over 2 years now, and so this week is actually my first week of having days off regularly every week, and I have 4 days off a week now, and I'm like, we got to fill that time with something now. But
podcast recordings.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just getting things on my schedule. I don't know. It's tough, and I'm a little lazy by nature. So when I have my lazy days, they are very lazy. But then when I have like full days, it's like, beginning of the day to the end of the day, just like going nonstop. And so I like to go out and I like to have fun, but I also have a shop that I got to run and got to keep money coming in. So
you do not strike me as lazy, but
oh, thanks. Good. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just I do all of it, just like try to work hard, play hard, and have very little breaks in between.
Is that something that you have in mind for the future? I know I keep referencing the future, but are you trying to scale to a point where you're a little bit more hands off and have more free time?
Yes. uh, Having free time really allows me to do the other projects. So it's essentially the taking off one hat to put on a bigger, better hat.
Yeah, put down the shovel and then some other dirt falls in from somewhere else.
Yeah.
What would you say is the one thing in life is the thing that steers you? And that's kind of I'm very aware that that's a very broad question.
Yeah.
I guess I'm asking because not knowing you, it seems like work is a big driver of like how you make your decisions and all that. Is that incorrect though?
No, I would say that's correct. Because I mean, there's a lot of things that go along with work, but
Of course, yeah.
obviously I've got to have some money and pay bills, and I could go get some 9 to 5 and do those things, but I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But I feel like in order to do the things that I want to do, there's more career options for me in doing the things that I'm doing, like owning my own business and kind of picking different career paths and lanes and things like that. Where if I want to travel and be able to go and rent cabins or something with my friends or whatever, like this is a good path to do those things. And so kind of just living the life that I want to live is a good driver.
That totally makes sense. Yeah. Hopefully that question didn't come across as too sharp.
No. I like that.
Yeah. It sounds like you're not averse to moving location wise, as you've already done. You said you might do. Is it hard for you to adapt to a new place, or do you find it pretty easy?
Both. Okay. It's I find that I social very quickly. Where Corvallis, I've been here for right about 2 years, and it's now tough for me to go out downtown and not know people. Like anytime I bring friends from out of town, or I had family in town this last weekend, and we went around to a couple different stores, and it's we walk into a store and I know the owner there and say hi to them and probably one of their customers, and then the next store, like see some people on the way there that I know, and then go into the next store and know the owner there. Like
yeah.
So I find that I like kind of get myself around town pretty quickly of like introducing and meeting people and becoming friendly. It's very easy to do that within like food service industry too. But I think like on a like more deeper level, like it's actually harder to do that like on a actual friendship level in a new place, especially for mid-30s in a college town, because there's like 12 of us that are in their mid-30s here.
Or 13 or 14. It's a low number.
Yeah. Well, a couple people just moved here.
Yeah.
So that was genuinely a big struggle for me when I first got here. Is I made a couple of friends and I was like, okay, cool. This is fine. We're good with this. But I've always been one that's used to having a pretty big circle or wanting to go do stuff regularly. And so just adapting to a college town and being like, all right, it's okay that some of the people I know are 22. That's fine. Like, and like having a bunch of college regulars come in where they're like 18, 19 is like, okay, this is my little sister now. Like, this is how I'm making friends here.
Yeah.
It's such a unique thing. I've had no experience with the college town. It's a full learning curve based on just the people that are here, the schedule that it operates on, basically has its own holidays.
Yeah. I guess I've never really thought about that adaptation process. I've been in Corvallis about 8 years now, but I came from another college town where I grew. I grew up in Chico, California.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, and they're very similar.
Yeah.
So I didn't really think about the difficulty if you were coming from like a Salem or somewhere like that.
For comparison, it's really the complete opposite. Where Salem, everyone there because everyone grew up there, and if there's new people coming in, everyone finds out about them because it's the new people in town.
Yeah, they're the odd ones out.
Corvallis, like everyone's new, always new, but it's such a like younger demographic always, and then their parents. So it was just this weird thing of being like coming from somewhere where everyone felt the same age because you all grew up together, and then coming here and being like, okay, where is everybody?
Well, I've experienced that a lot. I'm also in my mid-30s, so so I was late 20s when I moved here, and it's just like the older you get, the more you just look around, you're just like, and you're just like, where are all those other 12 people our age? But and one thing that was difficult for me personally on the personal side of things is just like making friends with like grad students and stuff who were like about my age, but like, it's just like, It's like they're short-term friendships.
Yeah.
So it's almost like heartbreaking. Just like,
That has happened multiple times of like, there'll be like regulars at the shop and I'm like, okay, they look like they're not early 20s, maybe mid. And then like finally just be like, do you guys want to be friends? Are we like, can we be friends? And then like hang out a couple of times. They're like, yeah, graduating in June, leaving.
to tell you I'm
Yeah.
a grad student. Yeah.
Yeah, every time. It's good handful of times I've gone through that one, but it's cool. Now I've got like people living all over the world. So
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, you like, I have great friends who are going to be lifelong friends, but it's a little different when they're living in Montana or wherever. But it is nice to go visit and all that.
Yeah, of course.
Moving back to you bouncing around and like trying all these different things, how do you learn new things? Like you said, you hadn't been in the service industry or done coffee. Like, what's your process?
So for coffee side of things, it helps because we don't run a very traditional coffee shop as is. There's the two silent partners with the business. Both of them have bar and coffee backgrounds.
Okay.
And so when they came into the business, they had also just started a company doing nitro espresso and nitro cold brew. And so a lot of coffee beverages that are kegged and ready to be like tapped. So for our shop, our espresso is just you pull it off of a tap, and it's essentially a high concentrate cold brew that has the same caffeine equivalent as espresso. So it just hits like espresso, but it's a little smoother, less bitter, less acidic.
Gotcha.
But since they were silent partners with this business, they came in, did all of the training, and said, "Here's all of the equipment that we need. Here's the budget for it," and then taught us all how to use everything. And that was like a weekend training a week before we opened, so we like really hit the ground running on that. But then like post that, it's just a lot of like doing things and then just being like, oh yeah, I don't know how to do this, or I don't know what this drink is, or whatever, and just Googling it, looking on YouTube and figuring it out, or asking. And I've got a lot of friends that are baristas at like other places and just being like, what is this and how do you do it?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I know that I own a coffee shop, but tell me what this is.
It's a humbling moment.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And then on the plant side of things, I had a pretty good background of plants before this, but it was like specifically with the plants that I had, which was a more limited selection, but I had a lot.
Yeah.
But still, there's just a lot of things to learn about different ones and stuff, and placing orders and figuring out what's popular and what people are interested in. And the market for plants is crazy because it's fluctuated so much over the last like 4 years, where things were really, really expensive and hard to get. And now there's these things that used to be $100, $200 plants, and they're like $20 now.
Oh, what happened?
Economics. A lot of them became so popular that the nurseries grew too many of them, like overgrew them so that they became pretty common plants. And once they like flooded the market, plus all the box stores started getting them, and their prices are already so low on plants. So then all of a sudden you have your philodendron pink princesses, which were highly sought after and hard to get, selling for, like a little plant for $200, and now that same plant is $20-$30.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't realize the whole field of houseplants had shifted so much.
Yeah. It's its own currency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's more of a reflection of me just not being in tune with plants.
It feels like stocks a little bit sometimes, where you're like, oh, okay, this is like $10 more expensive now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the process like for figuring out that economy and like sourcing, I guess both coffee, but also plants more specific?
Yeah. Getting plants was one thing where I had no idea how you did that. I was like, it's like surely someone. And so figuring out what nurseries are around and who delivers, and just kind of how that works, and the price models that all the different nurseries have too. But establishing some good relationships with them. And then, you get these wholesale sheets of like, here's what we have this week. How much of this do you want? And you go through, fill it out, and order the stuff. And I would get all the things that I knew and be like, yeah, people love these, or I love this one. And then a lot of looking on like Instagram and TikTok of like plant trends, like what are people sharing?
Yeah.
And then also because this is a college town, there's so many students that are getting plants, and they're moving here from somewhere else, and they likely either haven't had plants before or they had to leave their plants behind. So and they're living in like dorms with like one window and one shelf. So they're like, typically they're getting small stuff and things that are hard to kill and like don't need a ton of light. So there's also kind of a short list of plants that really like fit that as well. So just kind of like seeing what moves. Like the first year of the shop was kind of like, order these things because I knew that they do really well. And then like, let's try one of these and one of these and one of these and like see how it does. And then also learning the care and stuff for the things that I was less familiar with, where within the first month of being in the shop, plant care honestly felt like a used car salesman like scam to me, because I would be like, I knew how to take care of these plants, and then someone would ask and I'd be like, oh yeah, water it once every week and a half, give it bright and direct light. And I was like, oh, that's pretty much the same for all of these. Like not like all of them, but most of them. I found that I was saying it so much to where I was like, this feels weird. But then, like other stuff that I was less familiar with, of having to figure out how much water certain, like succulents or cacti or Hoyas and stuff like that need. But yeah, there's a small amount of learning curve, but mostly figuring out like names was probably the hardest part.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, it sounds like as far as just learning in general, like, because you jumped into the video stuff early on. It's interesting to hear how you didn't really enjoy school, but it sounds like it was more of like the structure of like the formulaic, like regimented versus like the self-directed and like inspired, finding the passive learning. It seems like that was really attractive to you, and it probably is one of the reasons why you're addicted to the entrepreneurship, I'm guessing. Yeah,
definitely. I never liked school. I was not a great student. Probably like could have been. I just didn't want to do any of the things that we were doing.
Sure.
I was like, this isn't on the agenda for me necessarily. I can see why we need this stuff. And so like, got a lot of the basics, and then I really just did the bare minimum at school for my entire like school career. And the internet was bigger and expanded and more popular like as I grew up, and it just became a thing where, especially like photo and video and stuff, at some point it was like, oh, you don't actually need to go to college for this. You just figure it out by doing, and like the things you don't know, you look on YouTube and you do it.
Yeah. That's how I got here.
Yeah.
I hear that a lot with entrepreneurs, is like that, like, I wouldn't say anti-school. It seems like a little bit of aggressive label, but like, like, that it's not the right fit. It's so interesting though, because I feel like so many people, well, especially I guess in the context of living in a college town. I was talking with some friends about this the other night when we were out. It's just like, a friend was talking about how he had like a debate with someone at a bar over like some other PhD student, and like, he's like, oh, you can't assume that like, I don't know what you're talking about, because like per capita Corvallis is like highly educated people. And most people here our age are like in school or have a master's level or higher degree. And it's, I guess, I'm rambling a little bit, but my point is, it's funny how sometimes the default for people is like labeling like education, like the traditional form of education is like directly linked to intelligence. Where it's, I don't know, people like yourself and me to a degree, like, operate a little bit outside of that traditional system of learning. And I don't know, it's hard to quantify. It's easier to quantify with like, oh, they have a PhD in X or Y or Z. But sometimes it's, those type of people are very like tunnel vision-esque in the way they like view things, which is a little bit limiting. And I know it just sounds like I'm rambling, crapping on people who are like in higher education, but I
encounter the same thing like pretty regularly. In the shop, so many people, I mean, most of the time they either come in and assume I'm an employee and a student going to school at OSU. Or they ask if I'm the owner, and they're like, "Oh, cool. Did you like go to school for this?" And
exactly.
No, I dropped out of school so I could do this. And it's a thing. I feel like it's a very like creative brain thing too, where creative brains generally aren't the best students. And I think a lot of the entrepreneurs I know are definitely more on that slightly unorganized creative brain side of just like, we'll figure it out when we get there. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
you just do it and you just do it. Like, that's how it works. And then all my friends that are like more on the like academic side are kind of like, well, I do this step and this step and this step. And then I get the diploma and then I can go do the thing that I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Me on the other side of the conversation is like, why don't you just do it though?
Yeah, exactly. Just do it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. This reminds me of a conversation I had with my dad years ago about, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like, unless you're a doctor, then like, please go to school.
You're right. Exactly. Yeah. There are many exceptions. I guess they're not exceptions if there's lots of, but there are a lot that, yes.
Yeah.
But for a lot of things,
Mhm.
I don't know. It's one thing that I've had conversations with younger folk who are, high school age or early college, and they're talking about what they're going to school for. I'm just like, why?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
you're like creating especially in like today, contemporarily, like
Mhm.
you might be creating this ball and chain of debt that's going to like really drag you down.
Yeah.
If you're getting a degree in, I don't really want to name any right now, because
Mhm.
but yeah, the softer sciences stuff,
Mhm.
yeah, or the liberal arts stuff. It's just like you can
Yeah.
probably do what you want to do with like a little bit of creativity.
Yeah.
But
You're gonna have a great degree for the 9 to 5. That's unrelated to the degree.
yeah, I know. I worked in some jobs, and yeah, there's plenty of people who work in retail who
Mhm.
have those degrees,
Yeah.
and you're just like, there's usually a lot of regret when I ask them about what they went to school for.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyways, I'm kind of getting off on a tangent here.
No worries.
Speaking of that, actually, I guess we can transition. What advice would you have to someone who's considering a self-employment path?
I mean, there's like so many different areas that you can go as far as like being self-employed, where like for the most of my career, I started more in a like service-based industry, not like service food industry, but service-based, where I had a set of skills and people would pay me per service of like, whether it's, photography or video or whatever, like doing those things. And a lot of that one is just doing it, like just going and doing it. And I've had a lot of friends involved trying to get into like photo, video, marketing and stuff like that. And kind of asking like, well, what should I do? And I was like, well, just find the thing that you want to do and like go do it for free for a little bit. A good example is there's a friend I have in town here who's a student at OSU, has been really involved in marketing. And when I had the agency, he was an intern with us for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And so he pops in the shop every now and then and he goes, here's what I'm thinking about doing. How should I do it? And so this most latest one was, he was like, when you were doing social media management, how did you get those clients? Like, how did you first like kick that off?
Yeah.
And so I advised him a little bit. I was like, well, like figure out how much money you need, like if you're going to charge someone for it, or like find one that you want to do for free that you wouldn't mind doing for free. Like if it'll be a passion for you to go to this business and like be involved in it, like start there, get that portfolio experience, and then you can take it to all the other ones around them.
Mm-hmm.
And so essentially, I kind of sent him out with like a handful of businesses where I was like, here are some places that aren't doing social media super well, and they could use the help, and they might be able to pay you some money. Mm-hmm. And I think he landed every single one of those and like got all those accounts and like did it for a good like introductory price. Like he's a college student,
sure.
So they know they're getting a pretty good deal, but they're also getting more benefit than what they were doing. And so for him, as like wanting to be an entrepreneur, like he just went out and did the thing, had like a handful of experience that he could show them, but mostly just like sold himself in a way to where it worked, but is also like very talented at what he does.
You're making me think of another question I got to ask.
Yeah.
About going into business, turning a passion and a hobby maybe into something that you do as a career. I know for me personally, mm-hmm. I hesitated for a long time. Outside of that, after that little early endeavor of like trying to do it with my friends post high school, I backed off, and I always had different jobs, and I kind of just dabbled because I was afraid of like killing my passion in photography and video. I'm curious for you, because it sounds like you almost chasing right into the passions.
My passion has changed a lot over the years, which has been a big surprise to me.
Yeah.
Or just the passion necessarily wasn't what I had always kind of thought it was, and it was just more on the creative general side. But like specifically what I found with my passion for video,
Mm-hmm.
is that I loved very specific aspects of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would do it and be like, cool, this is so great. This is so great. But every single project I would get to editing, and I'd be like, that can wait for tomorrow. That can wait until literally the day before I really need to hand it off, and I'll stay up all night and finish it. And like that eventually burnt me out.
Yeah.
Removed some of the joy because that was just the part that I didn't want to do. Like, it wasn't that the entire thing was my passion. My passion was creating stuff, but not the actual like nitty gritty, like putting it together. I realized that I liked doing the visual direction and having someone else whose passion was editing.
Right.
And as far as like for Greenhouse now, my passion isn't necessarily like making coffee, and it's not necessarily like selling plants. Like, I enjoy taking care of plants, which is the thing that I found while I was doing marketing. It was like, I enjoy that way more. I should probably take care of plants. But like, I just enjoy having people come in and like getting to chat with people and being nice to people. Like, it's just like good, providing good customer service like goes a long way.
Sure.
And it's very easy for me to just have small talk with people and chat.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. I guess maybe the way I framed it, you answered it in a very interesting way, because I was wondering if you're chasing passions, but what you're kind of what I'm hearing is like you're not chasing the specific, maybe in the moment, coffee or plants, but you're the lifestyle essentially.
Yeah.
And you're operating a business that caters to what you want lifestyle wise.
Yeah. A general passion and creativity is kind of what I would say more so it is. And like, there's different outlets for it. And I think Greenhouse is now offering a different one, but kind of same passion that I've had previously. I've got to do some very unique and unorthodox marketing for Greenhouse, which has been really fun. When I was doing social media, my favorite part was figuring out the business's voice, like looking at who they are as a business and kind of like how the community interprets them and like thinks that they sound, and then putting out their message in a way to where the community is going to receive it and it's going to improve their business. And Greenhouse is a weird one where I had no idea that it was going to be this when it started, but it turned into this like almost like live action meme. Like, I would say that like our brand is like the black sheep of the Corvallis community. Like, we're the uncle or the cousin that like almost doesn't get invited to Thanksgiving, but like we're there. I don't know, like pushing some boundaries, but just being fun. And on that, I've received a lot of people that are like, I love your guys' Instagram. Like, I'm always waiting for you to like post or share something new.
Yeah.
And like just trying to come up with something where I'm like, I'm going to do this. This is probably a little too much. And then I do it and it's not. Like, people love it. Like,
yeah,
we had our fall seasonal drink was the basic Bish latte, Bisch. And I was like, oh, that's going to get us some flack. Like, someone's going to complain about that. And like the very first day, it's just like groups of old ladies just like giggling, like, I want to get that drink. Like, like just this like weird, like this shouldn't be working, but it is.
Yeah. That's really funny. Yeah. I don't spend a lot of time on Instagram. But when I do, and I see you guys in the feed, it's always interesting content. Yeah. I really enjoy it. Speaking of your Instagram and the shop, how can people find you guys, get in touch with you?
Yeah. So Greenhouse is at Greenhouse Corvallis. Same thing for Facebook. There is a Facebook. I never check it, but everything's cross-shared.
Yeah.
And then for me personally, it's Bryon Neal Daniels, BrYonNealdaniels on Instagram.
Perfect. Yeah. If anyone's like me and needs to check out your bathroom, then we'll look up the shop and go check it out.
Yeah. We got a whole New Year's shoot that took place in there.
Yeah, I think I saw. Is that an annual thing? Because I remember seeing that. Maybe it was last year. Maybe it was 2 years ago.
It was last year. We did one. We did a New Year's Day, and it was just all of my staff, like individually. We're all getting ready in there for like New Year's, and then we did New Year's Eve was getting ready in there, and then New Year's Day was us just looking like sloppy, hungover, like the post New Year's glow.
I think that was early on when I started following you guys, and I saw it. I'm just like, what is this place?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
yeah, I can tell it's a very catered vibe.
Yeah. It's been a fun outlet for me as a now retired photographer, is getting to employ and pay like local, like try to stick to a lot of like the college kids in town here
Sure.
to shoot for us and do stuff that is beyond just your regular food service industry photos of drinks and food and stuff like that, and do something that's just like fun, creative concepts.
That's awesome, man. Well, people have to check it out for themselves.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Bryon, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right. And there you have it. This has been a super fun conversation with Bryon. If you want to hear more conversations like this or different ones, subscribe or follow the podcast. Until then, this has been the Bossless Path. Catch you next time.